listening to Multifamily with Mosley. On today's episode, we are joined by our hosts, Todd Spitalny and our Director of Procurement, James Alley, as they discuss navigating today's supply chain. Let's listen in.
Everyone, so I've got James Alley with us, our Director of Procurement. James has been with us a little bit over 2 years and brought him on to talk about some of the challenges that we're seeing in the last 2 years and what we expect to see coming forward. James, welcome to the show.
Hey, Todd, thanks for having me. Looking forward to
Oh,
discussing.
excited to have you. So tell us a little bit about what your day today is, James.
Well, I'm Director of Procurement for Mosley Multifamily. That entails ordering all the materials for all of our apartment renovations that we have in all the regions that we work in currently. I place the orders with our vendors and create different partnerships to ensure that all of our materials are delivered on site so we can turn over our on-time apartment renovations.
So James, you're probably our hardest working employee in the entire company, let's be honest, because all you do is deal with these challenges every day. What does a typical day look like in your world, with ordering materials for our projects?
A lot of forecasting, Todd. We've got to do a major look ahead in all of our materials that are going to be needed, not today, tomorrow. We're looking 30, 60, 90 days in advance. We're not in the same timeline as we were pre-pandemic. We do have the issues of items not being on the shelves, custom ordered. Everybody is needing 100 of the same items that we need. So we have to plan accordingly to ensure that we have those items on our shelves and that they're brought in a timely manner. Also, that they maintain the budgets that we have set out to our clients as well. So there's a lot of feedback back and forth between our vendors.
Understood. So when we talk about budgets, right? Like you brought that up. The budgets, how long are we seeing pricings hold? Because we've got the cash flow issues in the market. We've got all those things. How long are we able to see pricing hold?
In the past years, we had that semi-annual increases that would come around. You'd always have 6 to 12 months consistent without a price change. Now it's quarterly, and that's really depending on the supply and demand of the items that are needed. So it's a challenge to make sure that we're bringing in the material needed at the right price point, and also communicating to make sure that our vendors know these are our budgets, this is what we have to have, and that our clients are aware that not all vendors are holding any prices at the moment, and it's subject to change. So it's a volatile market that goes up and down.
So, our last episode, we talked about project development, scope development, pricing, and budgets being developed, right? We talked about that because it's a very important thing. And as our customers know, well, this procurement piece is the one piece we really haven't been able to hit yet. If you're telling me we're only going to be able to pricing for 90 days, how is a customer, an asset manager, or an owner supposed to develop a budget for the next 12 months on what a project's going to be? How do we combat that? What do we need to do?
Right now we're seeing some of the highest prices that we've experienced in materials for the past 40 years. And as of last year, I believe it was up over 9% on their rising cost of goods. So that's something that the clients are hopefully taking into account, that the rising prices are directly attributing to the rising cost of the construction side too. And we are pricing out with our vendors on the entire jobs, trying to set prices so they're contracted to these amounts, and we can get that longer time that we are guaranteed these amounts. Right now, that's that 3 to 6 month timeline that we are on the higher end, more around 6 months. But there's only a couple divisions that are around that 3-month timeline, and that really is the shipping cost. Inflation comes up, so the rising costs in transportation and shipping have definitely played a large factor in some of the rising costs, obviously, on maintaining the materials.
So when we talk about that rising shipping cost, what's a couple ways that we can mitigate that, right? There's simple solutions to it that we have to deal with. What are some of those solutions?
Buying in bulk orders too reduces some of the shipping costs. If you're getting them piecemeal one at a time, you're paying individual shipping. Getting a larger order in, getting it delivered to the job site, knowing you can put your hands on that material and go grab it and have it for that job, that is vital. So making the projections to know that if we're doing 100 units this month, I've got 100 sets of appliances coming out delivered ahead of time before our crews ever step on site.
Now, how far do you suggest when we're talking to our property managers and our regionals and our asset, how far out should we be talking about units coming on board? Because We know the leasing cycle is usually 30, 60 days. What's the importance of that to us and to them?
The sooner we know when we are going to be able to work on those units, and the second that we have that information come to the clients, we need to get that information because it's vital for my success in my entire department to manage what's going to be needed in the volume that's coming in. If I know I have 50 units coming up that need full sets of appliances, I need to get that out 90 days really in advance. So if we're able
Gotcha.
to forecast with our vendors that we're going to be doing X amount of units per month, that's really it. And the communication is key because we could get a large shipment in and it gets completely sold out. So we have to communicate knowing that I need this many units this month, and that way they can guarantee it.
Yeah, that's it's tough because now we're talking about other logistical issues that go on, and when we're ordering 50, 60, 70 units at a time for one site. Where do we store it? Where do we put it? All those things come into play. All those things get discussed. And then also, are we future ordering? Are we staggering? How do we do it? Those are all questions that we need to discuss with our clients on a daily basis. Whether it's the use, and James, you and I have talked about it many a time, using our technology in order to make sure that we're able to manage schedules, develop schedules, communicate with vendors, communicate with our team, communicate with the client itself, so they're always aware. Right? Those are huge things. So, you're seeing, what are the products right now that are having the greatest amount of lead time right now, and stress on that supply chain?
Right now, the biggest is going to be our lighting and our appliances. They're all mostly made for it. So there's, the American made products tend to be a little bit higher price points, which pushes up the budgets, which pushes up the margins. And, we need to utilize multiple vendors to be able to get them in. Not just one vendor owns all of the appliances that are coming in the United States. And so we have to think globally of who's providing and how much, and then also strategically throughout the United States. We work primarily on the eastern seaboard, which is great for the ports and being able to get those in. But my past decade plus working nationally, my mentality doesn't just limit myself to the DC market. I'm pulling from California. Where can we get material to come in that's in stock somewhere? We can pull from outside vendors too that may have it in stock, and that's those relationships that we have to create. And so if we do get our backs into a corner and we need something, we have an out to where we can reach out, call somebody, and have that delivered within the time frame needed.
Yeah, I mean, those are important things as we talk about, the lighting and the appliances. We've had to in the past literally leave appliances in place until appliances can show up, and then go back into occupied units at that point and change them out because we just haven't had the flexibility. We've seen upwards of 90, 120 days in material days. One of the things that we've talked about, in that appliance world, there's a couple of pieces that are really struggling, right? We've got the fridges. Those are always a struggle because those are part of the essential workflow that always have to be replaced, and they haven't been able to produce them fast enough. The stoves. We just saw GE come up with what was it, a 60-day delay on ranges, and then right now you've got issues on laundry. One of our favorites is the 110 dryer that we always have to come up with, right? I mean, God forbid we have to get one of those tomorrow. We're never going to get it. Um, and then you've also got slowdown in production where certain vendors stop making the black appliances because they just need to catch up on stainless steel. And then some of those off-market stuff, and you guys got like Summit out there who makes those under cabinet, those kind of niche product. They're readily available, which is great. But how do we incorporate that into a project where it wasn't budgeted for? So, James, we're talking about what we are now. We've seen improvements, we've seen those things. However, with the cash flow going on, with our vendors not being able to, and the manufacturers be able to supply as much product because the cash flow is not there due to the financial crisis going on, and obviously the products coming overseas, and the strike potential on long term shipping, all those things are affecting us. What do you think the next 24 months looks like to us?
It's going to mainly depend on the cash flow coming in. Having inflation's playing a huge part for all working capital projections. Not knowing exactly where the market's going to be going at the moment. We are not in a recession per se. I hate to use that word, but it is, where it is right now because we're looking at the pricing go up. So in the future, I think forecasting out what the properties are really wanting to do and looking ahead, if we want to do high volume amounts of units and get those turned in the timeline that the property needs, we need to project that out at least 6 months in advance so we can get the orders in, place that, and the property is going to be able to turn those units faster, not waiting on a go back unit to get the appliances put back in when they do come in stock. Or the option could be to switch to an alternate brand. The ranges you mentioned, Todd, that's a big one right now. Not electric ranges per se, but more on the gas side. I know the green initiative is to get away from the gas stoves. And that's something that's starting to cripple a little bit on the inventory because they're not producing them as much. And that initiative is really hurting the supply chain when we need to have a lot of those ranges in every unit that are already piped for gas that can't accept a higher power because you can't get that 220 into the panel. So there's the construction, the planning, and the site inspections of what we can actually anticipate and provide to our clients as an alternate route. There's not only one way to do things. We have multiple avenues, and we try to exhaust all those options before coming back with an alternate other than the spec.
Yeah, I mean it's such a key point that you're making about having that alternate, having that ability to be flexible in what we do. Also, all inside that budget, all inside of the timelines, all inside of what's available. I mean, we spend all day doing nothing but trying to source the same products from multiple areas, multiple places. Well, we're not the only ones. We're not the only ones. Everyone's doing it. You got the properties that are ordering their own materials. You got competitors doing it. All of those things. And you also then again have this new lovely 40% increase in housing and multifamily starts going on right now. We have our highest level of starts that we've seen in the last, I believe it's 10 years. Going back to almost 2007, 2008 with the starts after the crash. We've got that increased volume. So now we've got more people in the market trying to do more to keep up with the newer supply. They're competing over the same people. With the financial crisis going on, how do people move into those units? They can't afford it. So we're competing over the same small inventory of people trying to find housing, but yet then we have the complete, opposite where there's a shortage of affordable housing for many. So there's this constant competition for the same people. I think our market conditions are going to be ever evolving. We're going to be bringing on some guests over the next couple of months where we're going to be talking about those exact challenges. Asset managers, national suppliers, all of these people affecting the same things, talking about how do we combat it? Because we've got the crisis of affordable housing that's got to be solved. We've got the supply chain issues that are not going away, that are not easing. Yes, we've seen improvement in some areas, but some of the most critical points we're losing. And then how do we ultimately create a better living environment for our multifamily residents? And we're going to have people over the next several months talking about it. And if you guys really want to listen to it, because I think there's a lot of value, feel free to check in with us. If you want to come on and talk to us about it, you want to debate us, we'd love it. Come on board.
Thanks for listening to this month's episode. Join the conversation on LinkedIn by using the hashtag Navigating Today's Supply Chain. Next month, we will be joined by James Alley for a part 2 of our procurement series with 3 things you should consider. We'll see you then.